Welcome in, episode 340, What's Right with Nick Wright, presented to you by Boost Mobile. And this is an insane show we have today, because last night we had something of the yin and the yang of historic NBA Finals performances, and that's not an exaggeration. It was as bad of a performance as you will see from a team's best player, from a superstar in a finals game in your entire life. And it was just about as good of a performance as you will see from a team's second best player in an NBA Finals game as you'll see in a decade. And so we will get into all of that. And then we will also, I am going to make something of a Faustian bargain with the audience. And we'll see how it works out. Because it has a little to do with politics. It has a little to do with Solitaire. It has a little to do with internecine media beefs. And it has a little to do with the future of the Republic as a whole. And I know there are a lot of you that are not at all interested in a handful of those things, but are not like a moth to a flame. As soon as I say potential media beef, they're like, well, I guess I'm going to have to stick around for it. So all of that is coming later in the show. Also, Damonza, you, if you would like, might actually be able to leave the show about 20 minutes early, because not only are you not obligated to participate in the last third of the show, I don't even know that I want you to. For your sake, for mine, for everyone's. So you're welcome to stick around, but you also are not obligated to. And if you would like the legitimate deniability of, I wasn't even there, you feel free to take the earpiece out and keep it moving. How are you doing this morning, son?
Doing pretty good, Pops. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well. You sound great. Oh, I don't know if they changed your microphone or what, but you sound better than ever in my ear. All right, we will get to Game 5 of the finals in a moment, but first, thanks to our great friends at Boost Mobile, straight to voicemail brought to you by Boost Mobile. Shohei Ohtani pitches for the first time in a couple years with the Dodgers, throws an inning. We won't actually get to that. That's why it's just missed the cut. Red Panda. Is Red Panda a Hall of Famer? Great take. Oh my goodness. If it wasn't such a busy show, I could do at least 5 minutes on it. Red Panda has certainly offered more to the lives of NBA fans over the last 20 years than a lot of guys who actually made the Hall of Fame. That is a great take right there. And Joey Chestnut returning to the Nathan's Hot Dog Eating Contest, a story I do not care about at all, but because once upon a time I made the case Joey Chestnut's the world's greatest athlete in a segment called Nick Wright Public Defender, Defend the Indefensible, the producers are convinced I care about Joey Chestnut. No matter how many times I tell them, I actually do not care about Joey Chestnut. Reminder to everyone, like, rate, subscribe, review, follow us on YouTube, subscribe on YouTube, check out on iTunes, Spotify, all of that. Leave 5-star reviews. I never ask for reviews. It actually helps a lot. I don't totally understand why, but that would be great. And here's the other thing about people watching live on YouTube right now. The listener questions today are going to be interspersed throughout the show based on the topics we're doing. We're not going to have, if you have a question that's unrelated to everything, feel free to submit it. Maybe we'll get to it Thursday, but we're not going to do questions at the very end of today's show. So it's interactive for people who are watching right now and also about the topics at hand. But Damonza, let's get to what is likely the deciding moment of these NBA Finals.
Deciding, yeah. So OKC went up 3-2 last night. It looked like the Pacers were going to erase another one of those big deficits. They couldn't do it. Huge game from J-Dub and Shai. Haliburton got a little dinged up there early in the game, had 4 points. You said you have a crazy take about Haliburton. Do you mind laying that one on us?
Well, I don't think it's crazy. And I think at times, so here's what happens sometimes in some kind of meta media criticism, if I may. A little amuse-bouche before we get to real media criticism later in the show. Because there are so many prisoner of the moment, knee-jerk, over-the-top takes on a daily basis, there are then times when something actually might be the worst you've ever seen, and it gets lumped into it's a media version of The Boy Who Cried Wolf, and where it gets lumped into how many, we've heard this is the worst ever 11 times in the last 3 years. And while maybe some of the Tyrese Haliburton, why doesn't he score more? And the answer is because he's not a scorer. That's not where he makes his impact. Some of that maybe prior to Game 5 was a touch overstated. There is nothing that I can think of that could overstate what happened last night, which is on the very short list and maybe at the very top of the list of worst performances by a superstar and by a team's best player in a gotta-have-it finals game. I have my other computer. So I have the computer I do the show on. I have my other computer right here that I am going to have to glance at because I have so many basketball reference pages open to try to find the context for what Haliburton did last night or didn't do last night, that I was worried this computer would glitch on the pod. If people didn't... Go ahead.
Even with him being banged up.
Man, unless the injury was he lost his vision for 45 minutes, that's not an excuse. Okay. I understand he had calf soreness. I get it. And I understand that he probably, because of what we have seen with calf injuries, was a little tentative because of it. But 0 for 6, 4 points, a line of 4, 7, 6 with 3 turnovers in 34 minutes, simply in a game that somehow was a 2-point game in the fourth quarter, thanks to what, in all honesty, the backup point guard, TJ McConnell, was able to do in his minutes. I've just never seen something like it. And so here again, just to go over the different qualifiers that I threw on there for one other note. So Tyrese Haliburton last night, again, game score is not a perfect metric, but it is pretty decent as far as a catch-all stat. 15 is an average game. Anything above 25 is exceptional. Anything below 10 is bad. Anything in the negatives, it's one of the worst games in NBA history. Basketball Reference is able to do game score in the playoffs dating back to the late 70s. Haliburton last night had a game score of 2.3. Little context on it, J-Dub had a game score of 30. SGA had a game score of 27. If you want to say, how does this compare to the other Haliburton games, these finals, because it's not like he's had huge point games in the finals previously. His previous game scores were 11, 14, 23, 12. This was 2.3. So, I'm going to throw some numbers at you, but I think they're noteworthy because it is not an exaggeration to say that in our lifetimes, it might be the worst game a team's best player has had in a critical game, finals game. So, I threw this in the old stat head, not stat muse, stat head, which partners with Basketball Reference. Hall of Famers who played at least 30 minutes and made 0 baskets in a finals game with a game score less than 5. 2 times Dennis Rodman did it. Makes sense. The guy was a rebounder and a defender. Old Jason Kidd did it. And then Ray Allen with a sneaky, horrific game in the finals in 2010 that they lost to the Lakers. He had an 0 for 13 night. And Dennis Johnson for the 78 Sonics had an 0 for 14 night. So the Dennis Johnson game, who arguably was that team's best player, is the closest comp. Because Ray Allen, as great as he was in 2010 the third best player on that Celtics team. If we expand it to, okay, remove the Hall of Fame qualifier from it, and we do play at least 30 minutes, game score less than 5, field goals 0. The names on that list are, I'm not going to read you all of them, but it's Horace Grant, it's Dennis Rodman, it's Bruce Bowen, it's old Jason Kidd, it's that Ray Allen game and that Dennis Johnson game. But there's also the most recent one. The most recent ones were P.J. Tucker 4 years ago and Jay Crowder 4 years ago. If we then say, okay, Hall of Famer, remove game score or game score less than 5 and just have it be 2 or fewer baskets made. Again, he made 0. It's a couple Manu Ginobili games, 1 Paul Pierce game, that could qualify, a Reggie Miller 1 for 16 game, that one's rough. And I'm not picking on Reggie, but it is what it is. He was the best player on that team. And then a bunch of guys who weren't the best player on their team. Again, you just can't find it. Wes Unseld had a brutal one. Michael Cooper had a brutal one. 0 made baskets. Best player on the team. And playing 30 minutes. It maybe has happened once in NBA history. And Damonza, you seem like you think I'm being unfair because of the injury.
The injury, I mean, he took 6 shots. A lot of those other guys you were saying, Dennis Rodman's obviously not a score first
Dennis
type of
Rodman,
player.
throw him out. Yeah.
Neither is Tyrese Haliburton. You know, it's like the same thing. If he's not a guy that naturally looks for a shot, I think that in a game where he gets banged up early and he only takes 6 shots, like you said, Ray Allen went 0 for 13. If he's already looking to get his teammates involved, I think in a situation like that where his leg is already kind of tweaked, he's definitely going to be looking more to get his teammates
All right,
involved.
so this is where I guess I'm going to be an old man. I do not care if your leg is tweaked in Game 5 of the NBA Finals.
Right, exactly. That's why he played through it. And right.
He did play through it, and they had a chance to steal a game, and he was. I don't think I am known as the hot take negative guy. I might sometimes be known as the hot take positive guy. Mahomes is the greatest ever. LeBron's the greatest ever. Like that, you know what I mean? Those types of things. And I think sometimes people think of me as like the hot take trolling guy. Like the Lamar, James Harden thing. Like I know people that rub people the wrong way. I get all that. I do not often come out and be like, that's one of the worst performances I've ever seen. I'm just here to tell you, I went to bed last night thinking, was that one of the worst finals performances in NBA history? And I woke up this morning and I said, let me check. And I checked, and the answer was, yeah. The LeBron game that people will bring up to this day, the worst moment of his career, Game 5 against Dallas, he was 3 for 11, 8, 9, and 7 were his stats. He had a 5.9 game score. Worst game of his career, worst moment of his career, wasn't as bad as that. The Kobe game that people will bring up in the 2000 finals, he had a negative .4 game score. He was 4 for 20 that against in a blowout loss to the Pacers. That one, I guess, bothers me a little less because they were up 3-1 in a series they couldn't lose. Wilt had an unbelievable Wilt in 69. Wilt Chamberlain in 1969 against old man Bill Russell in Russell's final championship. Wilt had a 4-point, an 8-point, and an 8-point game all in one finals. And one of those 4-point games, he was only 1 of 6 from the field. The 8-point game, he was 1 of 5 from the field. The yeah but to that is in those 3 games where Wilt scored 4, 8, and 8, he had 19, 31, and 18 rebounds. So I'm like, okay, like, you really didn't do anything offensively. You did average 25 rebounds a game. I don't really know. I didn't see those games. I'm not sure. Bill Russell, all-time legendary guy. So but if I am looking up, like, the historic, memorable, worst LeBron moment of his career, the 4 for 20 Kobe game, the one of the most famous Wilt series ever. Now, again, you can say those guys all are upper crust, top 12 players of all time, Hall of Famers, and this Tyrese Haliburton. I totally understand that, and so I'm not holding him to that standard. What I'm saying is, the best player on a team doing this in the finals doesn't happen. It just doesn't. Even the Ray Allen game, he was the third option on that team. I guess you could argue second, but he was the third option. The Dennis Johnson in 78 is, I guess, the comp. The issue with that one, if that's the one like you want to use, because that, by the way, in fairness, was a game 7 that Dennis Johnson did that. They came back to win the championship the next year. So it's like, oh, well, that at least kind of makes up for it. And so, and I guess, listen, they maybe could.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're killing Halliburton because not enough time has passed yet.
Oh, no. So maybe they'll do that next year. He'll make up for it. But it's on the shortest list of worst finals performances by a superstar ever. And not calling it that is actually more disrespectful to Haliburton than what I'm doing right now. Because if you go on TV or on radio or on a podcast today and give him a pass, then what you're saying is, I don't think of you as one of those guys. Because everyone else that is the old guys, Steph, LeBron, KD, would get cracked if they had this game. The youngs, the Anthony Edwards, Shai, Luka would not be allowed to have this game. Giannis, Joker, Jalen Brunson would not be allowed to have this game. And so, is it an indictment on his career? No. Do I think, though? What, Damonza?
Every single player that you list are just so different from this player specifically. Like, every single one. Like, all the players that you just listed might be more similar to each other than Haliburton is to any of them. Like, and it's just
You're
like, if that's
100% right.
If that's already
right.
not
None of those
his
guys are pass first point guards.
Right. Like, and if that's already his style, but we'll see what he does in the next game. We'll see.
Here's the thing. I get what you're saying, but it's not like he had 13 assists. It's not like if it was just low scoring, which is what it's been for him in a few of these finals games, you can deal with it. But his assists, by the way, have been 6, 7, 11, great. 6, 6. He's turned the ball over 3+ times in all of these games. He didn't get to the line, which he hasn't done. I mean, he has 7 free throws this series. You're right, Damonza, that, and I talked about the other day how history says, man, if your top guy is not a go-get-you-a-bucket guy, if you don't have the best defense in basketball or your name's not Magic Johnson, you're not winning the championship. I understand that. But 0 for 6 and 4 points in the finals is 0 for 6 and 4 points in the finals. And if we can't call that for what it is, then I don't know. We don't have to spend more time on it, but it is as much of a no-show as you will see in a finals game by a superstar if you live 100 years. It's what it was. And to have that come off the heels of them blowing game 4, I'm not even one of the people that doesn't like Haliburton. So I don't love that. And I'm curious what other people are going to say today. I don't know. I hope I'm not like the face of like anti-Tyrese Haliburton. It's not what I'm trying to be. But, and this is the part that'll probably make you, because you're naturally a bit of an empath, uncomfortable. I think Tyrese Haliburton's going to think about these last 2 games for the rest of his career. Because I don't know that I think the Pacers are going to be right back here. I don't know that. I don't know. I think it's probably the smart bet that Tyrese Haliburton, that when his career is over, we look at the two biggest games of his career were these last 2. And now, if Pacer fans are yelling, they are not anywhere close to there without him. Absolutely. It's still an all-time playoff run. You bet your ass. He has imprinted himself on NBA history with the clutch shots in this postseason. And in 30 years, when whoever the hell is going on an all-time playoff run and a guy hits his 3rd de facto buzzer beater of a playoffs, and people say, this is the greatest clutch shooting run in playoff history, our AI overlords are going to pop a graphic that says, nope, Tyrese Haliburton had 4 in 1 year. Like, that's going to happen. But, man, oh man, the flip side is, in 30 years, when somebody has an offer in a de facto deciding game of the finals, and people are like, has a team's best guy ever done that before? His name's going to pop there too.
When did we decide that he was the unanimous best player on the Pacers? What about Pascal Siakam?
Oh, I think he's clearly the best player. I think everything runs through him. I think it's like his style and like Siakam's the best scorer, but I think he's the best player on the team. I mean, to me, that's fair. It's fair, but that's not to me, that's not a question. All right, ask a couple of these questions from the listeners or viewers, I guess.
Arjun asks, do you regret having Holly in club superstar, and is he still in the club?
No, I don't regret it, and yes, he's still in the club. I think he's one of the 12 best players in the league, and he's had an unbelievable postseason, and he carried a team that no one thought was going to be in the finals to the finals. But I mean, this is really, 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 really bad. Ask Liam and Alden's questions.
Yeah, Liam's in line with me. He says, "Why hog the ball when injured?"
It's not hog the ball, man. It's get a bucket. Get one bucket. I mean, again, like and also maybe I'm looking at the injury different than you guys. He had calf tightness.
I mean, he almost did like the same thing that Paul George did, I feel like. Like, I don't want to say he like hyperextended totally, and Paul George was gone after that happened.
He was running around. Like this was not OG Anunoby in the playoffs last year against the Pacers, where it's like, I have a strained hamstring, I'm going to go out there and I'm limping up the court. Like, I don't know, man. It's a tough one. All right, last one before we move on.
Adrian asks if you had to compare Haliburton's performance yesterday with a recent postseason performance by an NFL quarterback, which one would it be?
Justin Herbert's 4 picks. I mean, that's the answer. Like, in a very winnable game, he threw 4 picks and didn't. But it would have been that if briefly Justin Herbert left the game, his backup quarterback came in and started dealing, and then he came back in and immediately threw another one. I mean, it's not good, guys. All right, NBA Finals are here, at least for a little bit longer, and this really is your last chance to bet on the NBA until next season. DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA, is pulling out all the stops to make this a finals to remember. One team will be crowned champ, and the other maybe lost to history. Man, who you got winning it all? Put your hoops expertise to the test. All season long, DraftKings has been the go-to spot for NBA player props, and that doesn't stop now. Who's going to carry their team to the chip? Try placing a bet on your personal MVP to drop 30, 40, maybe even 50. Can you imagine if you had J-Dub to score 40 last night? Holy moly. Ready to place your first bet? Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Lock in your bets. Finish the season as a winner. Something special for first-timers. New DraftKings customers. Bet $5. Get $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. Don't miss your last chance to bet on the NBA this season. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code WRIGHT. Code WRIGHT, W-R-I-G-H-T. That's code WRIGHT for new customers to get $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins when you bet $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. All right, Damonza, let's get to the flip side of that coin, Jalen Williams last night.
Yeah, we talked about Haliburton's lows, talk about J-Dub's highs. He dropped 40 yesterday. Do you want to put that into context and being the second man and all that?
Yeah, I mean, listen, the example everyone's going to go to correctly is Kyrie, 2016, Game 5. LeBron scored 41. Kyrie scored 41. In an all-time duo performance. This, to me, I'm not going to... This was different than the Kyrie one in that SGA was, like, even in that Kyrie performance, I think for LeBron, he had 41, 8, and 11, and he had 41, 16, and 7 in back-to-back games. I don't know which one was Game 5 and which one was Game 6. But even in that game, LeBron was the driving force and Kyrie was right alongside him. This game, J-Dub, as good as Shai was, and Shai was excellent, J-Dub was their best guy last night. And I had heard somebody, I forget who, be like, man, could Jalen Williams be kind of this generation's Scottie Pippen? And when I heard that, my initial reaction was, that is so ridiculous and so disrespectful to Scottie. Now, this is going to be prisoner of the moment-y. But now I'm like, I don't know, maybe. Scotty's career playoff high with Chicago, career high, was 32. He never scored 40 in the playoffs. I know he had one huge scoring game with Houston in the playoffs. I remember it, but it was so high 30s. But with the Bulls, I looked it up this morning. It was 32. And now Scotty, J-Dub's an excellent defender. He's not Scottie Pippen defensively, but I mean, he's also not a fully formed player yet. Jalen Williams, his arc is super fascinating and super fun to talk about in a positive way. Because Jalen Williams, in a lot of ways, if someone wanted to say, why did the Thunder lose last year to the Mavs? Other than Luka was unbelievable and the Mavs shot the lights out. If your answer to that question is Jalen Williams didn't show up, that's a fine answer. Last year, round 2 against the Mavs, 17 points a game on 42% from the field, and his primary guard, or one of them, Luka, just lit him up, right? For him to respond, and then this year, in the Nuggets series, in the same round, it looked like, is Jalen Williams going to be one of those playoff guys, and not in a good way? When we saw him in that game 4 that they ended up winning, he goes 2 for 13. Game 5, he's 5 for 14. Game 6, he's 3 for 16. And it's like, are they going to have sneakily a Jalen Williams problem? And then game 7 of that series, he was exceptional. And then in these finals, after 2 pretty nondescript offensive games, he scored 26 on 50% in game 3, 27 on 44% in game 4, and 40 on 50% in game 5. And this is another thing I looked up. Like, 40-point games in the finals, Damonza. 40-point games in the finals.
Well, like
NBA history. 30 ever in NBA history. If we switch it to, in fact, let me just leave that there just for a second. So guys who are not on that list, Larry Bird, not on that list. Tim Duncan, not on that list. This one's not a big, Magic is on that list. Shout out Magic. Oh yeah, of course. What am I thinking about? The most famous game of Magic's career. Game 6, when he jumped center, filling in for Kareem as a rookie. He scored 40. Magic as a rookie, game 6, played center and scored 40. And it was the only time he ever scored 40 in the finals. But so, when we're talking about like all-time guys, Akeem, not on that list. If we want to zero it in, and I just switch it to if they're active or not. There we go. Let me click active. Yes, get results. All of the active players with 40-point finals games. LeBron's got the second most all-time with 8. Second, by the way, to, if it's not Michael Damonza, I'm going to throw this one at you. Yeah, well, no, I was talking to myself, but now I'm going to throw it to you. It's Jordan's got 6. LeBron's got 8.
So LeBron's 2, Jordan's 3, and then there's this number 1 guy?
Correct. So I'm going to give you one hint.
Oh, playoffs or finals? This is just finals, right?
Finals. I'm going to give you a hint. He's a guy that in the last couple months, all of a sudden, we did an impromptu like 8 minutes on. his career and how great but unlucky he was.
It's Russ. Is it Russ?
No.
No, okay.
No.
Great but unlucky?
Jerry West.
Oh, Jerry. Oh, yeah.
Jerry West has
Jerry
has 10. Okay, but here is the full list of active players with a 40-point finals game. Bron 8, Giannis 3, Kyrie, Steph, Booker, shout out Booker, 2 each. And then 1 apiece, Russ, so you were close. Kevin Durant, Jimmy Butler, Chris Middleton, Joker, Jalen Williams. That's the list. So that's remarkable. I mean, that is utterly and thoroughly remarkable. It is in line with, and the best example of that performance is the Chris Middleton game. And I should have mentioned this before I mentioned the Kyrie game. The game down 2-1 to the Suns, the game that is famous for the Giannis block on Ayton, Chris Middleton dropped 40 on 15 of 33 from the field. And similarly to how Shai was really good but not exceptional, Giannis, 26, 14, and 8, and that blocks. I mean, that might be exceptional. That's pretty damn good. But it, didn't match his scoring. And so doing it as a second option is just such a special and unique thing. And he's the only guy on that list. Well, fair's fair. Russ in 2012 would have been the other one. Russ, he had 43 on it. Durant obviously was on the team. So he would be the other of the active guys that was a true, and Kyrie, who I mentioned earlier, a true second option to go out there and drop 40. And it really does, for a kid who just turned 24 and is an awesome two-way player, for him to get better and better and explode offensively like this, that is the type of thing that makes you incredibly optimistic about what...
The Thunder future?
Yeah, the Thunder future. Another all-time game by a team's not their best player, the famous James Worthy game that kind of, I don't want to say got him the nickname Big Game James. Oh, you know what? That game, I'm wrong. I'm looking at it now. That's not the game where because Worthy scored 40 in a finals loss. Worthy had some big ones, but his only 40-point game was a finals loss. And so, Kobe, as great as Kobe was, young Kobe, I mean, Kobe never scored 40 with Shaq. He scored 40 once in the finals, and it was when the first championship they won without Shaq. It's a special thing this kid just did, and you have to raise the ceiling of what they and he can be because of it.
Go ahead. With that game that he just had, if Shai were to say OKC wins the next game, they win the finals. J-Dub drops 36, 37 or something. Shai drops 22, 23 points. You think there's a chance J-Dub gets finals MVP over Shai?
So I saw that percolating. That to me would be crazy. I don't think that's... Right now in the series, Shai is averaging 32, 5, and 5 with 2.5 steals and 2 blocks. J-Dub is averaging 26, 6, and 4 with 1 steal a game and 0 blocks. And Shai's been more efficient. So I think that...
It'd be pretty hard to do.
Yeah. I mean, it would take kind of what you described, like and listen, it's only 7 or 9 voters. It's in the heat of the moment. You just vote for one name. So is there a scenario like if J-Dub goes out and drops 35 plus again, and Shai would, the thing is this, and I don't think this can happen really. Shai would have to be bad. Like they would have 15. To win despite Shai. Yeah, he'd have to have like 14. Like, could you imagine if he was like 0 for 6 with 4 points? Well, that's impossible. And so like I don't right now. I would say Shai has to be minus 1,000 for, and maybe you guys can look that up. For Finals MVP. And so I don't, I get it, but I think Shai, I also am of the belief, Damonza, that if it's close, and right now it's not close. Right now it is clear. Right now, if last night was the clinching game, yeah, it should be. Oh, so Shai is only minus 550. Yeah. And the Thunder to win the series are what, like minus 1,500 or something? So that they're saying it's closer than I think it is. But if it is close, I think the best player should get it. And right now, I don't think it's close. All right, what are some follow-ups before we get to...
How comfortable do you think OKC should be going into this next game? Comfortable at all?
I think they're going to be quite comfortable, Damonza. I think the Pacers know they missed their shot.
I hope that's not how they feel. I mean, I think they absolutely have a shot with this next game being at home. I mean, hopefully the Haliburton injury isn't getting everybody's head. You know, we've got a couple days to rest. Got them at home. Those role players for OKC are like night and day when it comes to playing in Oklahoma or Indiana. So
listen, I've underestimated Indiana every step of the way. So you might be right. Now, I mean, if Oklahoma City wins Game 6, it will so validate why Bet of the Year was Bet of the Year. They lose a game on a buzzer beater. The Pacers are playing better than anyone could have possibly expected. TJ McConnell has a game. Benedict Mathurin has a game. Like, all of these things happen, and Bet of the Year still comes in.
Hey, dare I ask you if you're hedging? You know, with
you can't really. Here's the thing. It's very, very difficult. Not that I would, but it's very, very difficult to hedge minus odds bets. This was a minus 260-ish bet to begin with. Okay. So now all of a sudden, like, and so now I'm gonna bet the Pacers plus, you know, let me look. The Pacers on the money line for Game 6. I mean, I'm not going to do about it. No, I was going to walk through it, but there's no chance I'm doing it. And so, no, this is Bet of the Year was Bet of the Year for a reason, boys and girls. Now, I will tell you, Friday night in Miami, watching Game 4, I thought Bet of the Year was dead because I thought the Pacers were going to win that game. And I still think the Pacers are going to look back on. They had 4 consecutive possessions, Damonza, at the end of the third quarter of Game 4, up 10, where the Thunder had gone empty trips 4 straight times. And it was a McConnell miss, back-to-back Toppin missed free throws, and then 2 Siakam misses. And it just felt like that was their moment to take this game and maybe take control of the series. And they couldn't do it. All right, let's move on to the Thunder as villains theory.
Yeah, so you know how, sorry about that. So you know how every time a team gets good or there's the threat of a dynasty, everybody starts to hate them. You know, with Shai's foul baiting in Indiana being a lovable team and then beating him. How long do you think it'll take for fans to start hating OKC?
I think it's very hard to go from apathy to hate. And apathy is too strong, but I don't think there's a ton of people right now that have super passionate opinions about the Thunder in a negative or positive direction, other than obviously their fans and like diehard basketball fans that just really appreciate what they've built and who they are. So I like the Spurs at one point won 3 championships in 5 years. They were never hated. At least I don't think they were. And by the way, as far as foul baiting, I know he wasn't their best player, but nobody was in NBA history was more guilty of that than Manu.
Spurs were a different team. Wait. Oh, the foul baiting you said?
Yeah.
Yes. Spurs are just a different team. I feel like OKC's. Those guys were just monotone to me. I don't know. Like you can't really dislike.
No, that's
them in
listen.
any type of way.
Right. So and you're saying that the Thunder have
Thunder
more
got
of, like,
a little more personality.
They're very
to them.
Gen Z.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, they are very. They would be our first true Gen Z champion.
Right.
And God, I don't even know if they're even. Are they Zoomers? I don't even know if they're Gen Z.
Yeah,
like I'm not even sure. Like, and so, or is it Gen Alpha? I don't even know. But I don't think. I also, and you thought I was premature when I did this after Game 5 of the Western Conference. I'm sorry.
Eastern.
After game,
when you were like.
After Game 4 of the Western Conference Finals, when I did. The Thunder are winning the championship, but pump the brakes on the dynasty talk. I wasn't premature. They are winning the championship. And I still say pump the brakes on the dynasty talk with the caveat of let's see how much better J-Dub can get. Because I am not, just like I am not going to underreact to Shai's performance last night, I'm not going to underreact to J-Dub's performance either. And I think that is a stop you in your tracks. Wait a minute here. What can this guy be at 24 years old when he does this type of moment? It's 40 points in the finals again. 30 guys ever have done it. 40 points as a second option in the finals. Kyrie, Russ, James Worthy, Chris Middleton, and we're close to the end of the list. So that's something really, really special. All right, so let's ask some of these chat questions before we move on.
T asks, do you think Shai is essentially what Jordan would look like in the modern NBA? Just more shifty but less athletic, and not the best guy in the league, but like top 5?
No, listen, Michael Jordan would be the best guy in the league right now. Yeah, like, guys, you're trying to... I understand that I think Jordan's legend might be a little overstated, but prime Kareem and prime LeBron are not active in the league. So I am comfortable saying Michael Jordan, like prime Michael Jordan, would pretty comfortably be the best player in the league. So that's first of all. Second of all, I do think there are, I think that's a fair comp, like a killer in the mid-range, but Jordan before the first retirement, his athleticism was just so unbelievable. And like Shai is more, more of an artist. Yeah. And so, but I understand the point. I like Scott's question.
Scott says, will SGA inspire Canadians to want to be basketball players more than ever before?
I bet. If the MVP of the league and champions from your country, like that's one of the great things about the game expanding, and you saw once the NBA got some stars, or not even necessarily stars, just big time players from Eastern Europe. We're getting paid the dividends now. Dream comes over. The NBA puts a real investment in Africa that we're getting paid the dividends now. Like, yeah, I mean, I would imagine, Steve Nash had a real impact on this as well. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that when you have a true superstar from a place that otherwise wasn't producing stars, that there is a groundswell. I think there's no doubt about that. All right, this message applies to 99% of you listening right now, because that's how many of you can be covered by fast and reliable service on the Boost mobile network with 99% nationwide coverage. And if you don't think you deserve a deal, listen up. You got another thing coming. Right now, when you switch to Boost Mobile, you can get iPhone 15 with Dynamic Island and a 48 megapixel main camera for $99.99. That's $99.99 for iPhone 15 on a nationwide 5G network. This may only apply to 99% of you, but I'm 100% positive Boost Mobile just gave all of us a really amazing deal. In-store offer, $35 device setup fee may apply, requires credit qualification, ID verification, and activation on $60 plan. Taxes, extra, 5G speeds not available in all areas. All right, let's get to some of the NBA trade stuff before we get to lying media beefs and the future of the Republic as a whole. So go ahead, Damonza.
NBA trade season has opened up. Memphis traded Desmond Bane to Orlando for Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Cole Anthony, 4 first-rounders, and a swap. So now the Magic have the 5th best odds to win the East next year. What was your reaction to this trade?
All right, bunch of quick hitters. First one is this. It's a low-key diss of the Pacers.
Yeah.
Here's what I mean.
Because they're saying we could take the East right now, right? They're saying
yes,
next year,
the Magic are like, well,
Paulo's
shit.
our guy.
Yeah, if Indiana can do it, why can't we? So, like, I'm not exaggerating when I say I don't think this trade happens if Jason Tatum doesn't tear his Achilles. Honestly, like, I know that sounds silly, but I think that the Magic look at it and they're like, okay, Paolo is going to take a step. We like Franz. We could not shoot at all. Let's go for it. I also am not as certain. I know there's been some reporting that, the Grizzlies, they're not making any more moves, though. They're standing pat with Triple J and Ja. Maybe. And Brew and I talked about this yesterday. He's like, well, do you really want to sell low on Ja? And the question is, do you think this is selling low? Or even, because here's now the new problem with Ja. Even if he has cleaned up everything off the court, which I don't know if he has, but let's say he has, he now has a different red flag, which is the injury stuff. He missed a bunch of time this year. He got hurt in the playoffs again. So you might be selling low, or it might only feel low now compared to where he was a couple years ago, but will feel high compared to where he is a year from now. So I do think the Magic are a real threat in the East if Paolo takes one more little step forward. They needed shooting. They now have shooting. Here's my other reaction to this trade, Damonza. So what's Austin Reeves worth? If Desmond Bane is worth 4 first-rounders, because I know that KCP is a negative value contract, so maybe one of those first-rounders was to take KCP off their hands. So then it's 3 first-rounders in a swap, but you also got Cole Anthony. And those first-rounders are not nothing. Like, they're not gold, but it's the 16th pick this year. It's a weird, triple swap between Washington and Phoenix next year. Will probably end up being Phoenix's first round pick next year. That should be top half of the draft. And then unprotected Orlando 28 and 30. And any team's unprotected 30 is interesting because the NBA is so crazy and because things change. So those picks aren't fake first rounders. None of them are like, an unprotected Utah 2026. It's not, holy shit, this is going to be a top 5 pick guaranteed. But they're not, I would say they are good, not great first rounders. And if that's what Desmond Bane gets you, then is the Lakers' real path to getting a center a 3-team trade where I will use Utah as an example, where Utah doesn't want Austin Reeves because they, don't want to compete yet. But you flip Austin Reeves to a team that does want him, that has a bunch of picks. Those picks go to Utah, and Walker Kessler goes to the Lakers. If Desmond Bane's worth 4 first-round picks, Austin Reeves worth 3.5 first-round picks? Is it fair? Tell me if you disagree with me, Damonza. Is it fair to say Bane and Reeves are the same tier of player?
Yeah.
Different players.
Fair.
Yeah, but if we're ranking players, they're within a few spots of each other. Bane's a better defender and a way better shooter. Reeves is a better shot creator and a better driver to the basket. Bane's on 4 years, $155 million left on his deal. Reeves has 1 year, $13 million left on his deal, which just means you're going to have to extend him for, 35 plus million a year probably. So I think that if Mikal Bridges goes for 5 firsts and Bane goes for 4 firsts, then the price of cost controlled relatively quality top 50 but not top 25 players has been set. And
it's a lot.
I know it is a lot. And I also, though, I know, listen, the Luka trade was obviously a disaster. I get that. But people are like, you get 4 firsts for Desmond Bane and 1 first for Luka. You got Anthony fucking Davis with Luka.
I was just having that conversation with the producer this morning.
I don't understand. If they wanted, you could have gotten, I'm sure, 5 firsts for Anthony Davis. So if you're Dallas, you would have felt better if you got 6 first-round picks but no Anthony Davis. And Max Christie was probably worth 1 first-round pick. You got 2 players in the deal. And so KCP on his 2 years, $40 million left on his deal is worth a negative first-round pick. Cole Anthony is probably worth just less than a first-round pick. So those two kind of cross each other out. I think the Luka trade's something different entirely. All right, let's do Kevin Durant before we get to the other stuff.
Kevin Durant has preferences. He would like to be in Houston, San Antonio, or Miami. Shams reported he doesn't want to be in Minnesota with his boy. Mark Spears reported KD wanted to go to the Knicks, but they weren't interested for some reason.
Yeah.
Phoenix said that they'll take the best deal available. How do you think things change for KD in the market so far? I'm sorry with the Bane trade.
No, you're fine. I don't think the Bane trade impacts Kevin Durant's trade much. They're just one guy's 10 years younger than the other. One guy's on a contract that you know exactly what it is. The other guy's got a year left, but probably wants to extend. If you trade for him, you want to extend him, but you have to make for 2 years, 120. You got to make sure he'll do it. The Magic are taking a long view of things. Whoever trades for Durant, you have to feel like you can win right now. I just think Houston makes the most sense. I don't think KD wants to live in the cold. And I think that might be one of the reasons he's not high on Minnesota. And I know everyone's going to mock Kevin Durant for that. I don't know,
For
man.
not
I
wanting to
get
go to
it.
Minnesota?
Yeah, for being like, oh, like I think that there's the so like in our business, right? Let me just defend Kevin. If it's true, Katie doesn't want to go to Minnesota, and it's just like I don't want to live in Minnesota. I want to live in Texas where I went to college, or I want to live in Miami because that's sweet. Here's the defense of Kevin Durant on that, okay? In our business, sports talk, right? There's hubs in LA, hubs in New York City, and a hub in Bristol, Connecticut. LA's awesome. New York's awesome. Bristol, Connecticut is Bristol, Connecticut. It's just, small town and not a lot to do other than, as Dan Patrick put it, the mothership is there. Guess what, guys? Every single person that has found themselves with enough juice that was working in Bristol got moved. Like every single one. Greeny wanted to be in New York. They went to New York. Wilbon and Kornheiser were like, we're staying in D.C. if we're doing the show. They did it. Levitard was like, I'll come to you guys, but I'm staying in Miami. They built a thing in L.A. Like, Scott Van Pelt was like, guys, I'm going to do the 11 p.m. Sports Center. I'm going to be awesome at it. I'm also from Maryland. I'd like to live there. Like, you got it. Like, there's the people who have, like, options on this stuff that usually end up where they live is a big part of what they use their juice for. So if Kevin Durant at the end of his career is like, man, I don't want to live in Minnesota. I don't. And I don't know if that's what it is or not. But if everyone's like, that would be ridiculous. I don't find that ridiculous. I would understand it. And I understand Durant doesn't have, a wife and kids. But he's still got people. I'm sure people that, kind of move where he moves and stuff like that. Like,
if it were like 5-10 years ago, I think it would have been crazy. I don't think crazy, but it would be like just because of the weather, man. You don't want to live in the cold spot. But he's at the end
or
of
if
his
you
road.
had never won a championship, or if you had been kind of an underachiever, or any of those. But if he looks at it and he's like, man, I think there is about as good of a chance to win a title next year, the next couple of years, in Minnesota, San Antonio, or Houston. So send me to the place that's the state I went to college, has better weather, I'm more comfortable, no state taxes, whatever it is. Now, the Miami thing, I would look askance at because I just feel like you can't win. But maybe you'd be like, it's the East. I can win. So I don't know. But I think Houston should be the team that does it. I think Jalen Green plus a guy. I said Dylan Brooks. I know other people have said Jabari Smith. I try to keep Jabari. And give Phoenix back the pick of theirs that you have. And I think Phoenix with that coach, if you just think about Houston this year,
with Kevin Durant
in that series against the Warriors, if in place of Jalen Green was Kevin Durant. I mean, that defense, Şengün being the hub of everything, that's a real thing. So I would like Houston. It seems like some people think Shams' body language told us it was the Spurs. I don't know that I'm buying that. The Spurs are certainly an option. Also, the argument of, hey, KD's bad at picking his teams. So, he picked the Nets. It didn't work. He picked the Suns. It was a disaster. So you should send him where he doesn't want to go. That sounds good. But teams are only going to want him if he wants to be there because if you trade for him, you want to sign the extension. Okay. Damonza, you sticking around or you leaving?
I'm gonna watch it. I'm gonna watch it later. I think
You're out of here.
Yeah,
all right, smart. All right, Damonza's out. Thank you, pal. So here's the deal. So I am going to talk about the Stephen A. Smith Solitaire thing. but it's going to be quite the bridge I build to get there. And you're going to have to deal with what I'm sure some of you will think is a lot of political commentary. It's not a lot. But all of you will think is some. And so it's kind of, got to eat your vegetables to get the dessert at the end of the meal. But we're going to have a real conversation for, 10-ish minutes here about a scary direction to me the country is heading, in which the country is heading. And I promise I'm not being over dramatic in my view when I say that. So I think right now, the single biggest problem in our country is lying. I saw a couple months ago a tweet that was like a long form tweet talking about how we need to get back to treating outright lies as moral degeneracy. And I've thought about that tweet probably 100 times since I saw it, because I 100% agree. And here's why. And here's why I think it's important for us that we make outright lying, not shading, not presenting facts in a way that they're most beneficial to you, but outright, bald-faced, undeniable lies need to be a subject of shame and ridicule once again. Because while a lot of people of a lot of different political stripes, for very different reasons, feel we're in a dangerous place in this country, our collective inability to agree upon singular truths, actual facts that did or did not, or that facts that are or aren't true, events that did or did not happen, and a lack of any real societal or media pressure to stay true to objective facts, especially when we're in the midst of a fledgling age of deep fakes and real actual fake news and artificial intelligence and different things that can really paw at our conception of reality in a way our brains probably are not yet fully equipped to deal with. I think as a society, our moving away from the way debates work on everyone agrees what happened, but then we argue about what should be done about it, moving to all of the time that should be spent arguing about what should be done is actually spent litigating what actually has already occurred, is incredibly damaging and incredibly dangerous. And it wrecks our ability to live in a collective reality. And no matter where you stand politically on anything, this should be scary. Okay? And so that is the premise with which I am going to explain to you why, and eventually we will get to Solitaire, why I have not talked at all about something that I personally have found horrifying. Seems like about half the country has as well and half the country hasn't. But I haven't said a word about it. And that's the ICE raids and the different things that have been happening to immigrants in this country. The reason I have not talked about that, and some people are like, Nick, you have a platform, you have strong opinions, you have, a voice that matters or doesn't, I don't know. The reason I have stayed out of that is because as much as I hate it, and I think it's anathema to what America is supposed to be, and I think a lot of it has been lawless, it is exactly what they said they were going to do. And I do believe in democracy. I don't believe that the election was rigged or voting centers were hacked or anything of that nonsense. I think the guy who said we're going to deport 20 million people, as insane as that sounded to me, and kept saying it, and at the rallies they had signs that said mass deportations now, all of it, I think that guy won. And so as much as I hate it, in a way, they're just doing what they said they were going to do, and we had a contest to see if people liked that idea, and that guy won. So it has felt to me a little like almost sour grapesy for me in my position, who's not a political commentator by trade, to talk about that a lot or at all, because it has felt like, well, they said they were going to do it and they're doing it. And so we can fight back against it, but we can't say, we didn't see this coming. But I do find it abhorrent. And I find it so abhorrent that I find anyone in bed with them or aiding and abetting, I think, the packaging of it, to be a real stain. And a stain on the country that I don't know if we're going to quickly recover from. And so with all that said, and with everything that's happened over the last few months, the thing in relation to these raids and deportations and the military in the streets and all of that, that really struck a chord with me was not when Senator Alex Padilla got, kind of shoved and then pushed to the ground and handcuffed, but that the response to that, despite it being on video and everyone knew it was on video, the response was blatant lying. And everyone just accepted that, of course. That the immediate message was he lunged at Secretary Noem and that he, quote, never identified himself. And that as soon as he identified himself, he was, unhanded. No, and none of that was true. And they knew that none of that was true, but they said it anyway. And so it's not that I'm more bothered by one United States senator being roughed up than I am by tens of thousands of people being deported or anything like that. It's that one thing was, hey, we're going to do this. If we win the election, we won the election, we're doing it. The other one was just fiction. And it was fiction that they knew they felt they could get away with because they felt that either people are numb to it, or in an effort to both sides everything, folks will justify it. Or they won't flatly call it what it was, which is degenerate lying. And so, when I then saw a guy who I have always really respected, a guy who I've always liked, a guy who I've always had a good relationship with, that last of which is sadly probably in the past tense at this point, but maybe not. Stephen A. use his massive platform to essentially kiss the ass of the people who were lying about what happened to Senator Padilla, didn't care that they were lying about it, and abandon any obligation in my eyes to truth or fairness in just a relentless pursuit of a bigger and bigger tent and larger audience and more eyeballs. I found it just awful. And I'm like, really? Your takeaway from this was he should have acted with more decorum, which, by the way, is a fine opinion to have, I suppose. But everyone's takeaway, the top takeaway should have been, they're lying. And we saw it. And they know we saw it, and we know they're lying, and they don't care. And then you saw an even more egregious example by the Utah Senator Mike Lee on Twitter this past few days after those horrific political assassinations in Minnesota, just outright lying about what happened there. And folks barely notice because we've become numb to it. We've become numb to the fact that folks with all the power that we've entrusted so much society in are unrepentant liars. And this part I think is important. Lying without actually hoping to get away with it. It's not like, oh, they're not going to know. It's that they know they're going to be called liars. They don't care because there is no damage right now to being a liar. And they just want to muddy the waters enough that people can then claim there's a disagreement or a debate or confusion about what happened. And they don't have to confront any real truth. Which oddly and hilariously brings us to Solitaire. Because here is the truth. I don't think many people actually give a shit that Stephen A. was playing Solitaire. I think that it was just an easy way to hit a guy that they don't like. And I do think it's objectively funny that it's Solitaire, but he would have been just as distracted if he was doing online banking or sports betting or on Twitter. The sin of not being locked in on the game would have been just as it would have been just the same, but it wouldn't have been as memeable or as, just objectively funny. And so people are, I think, feigning a bit of outrage about how awful it was that during a game he wasn't locked in because they don't like him. So, and I don't really care. It's funny and Solitaire of all the games. Like if he were playing chess, some people are like, oh, how about that? My issue is with the response. Because the response was instantaneous, and easily disprovable as a lie. During a timeout, knowing, he's a very smart guy, knowing if someone took a picture, someone might have a video. If they have a video, the court might be in it, or sound might be on, or or in the picture, everyone in front of me is standing. Even in the still picture, it sure looks like the game is going on. But still the response, just lie, because who cares? And then even when the video comes out and it's clear you lied, turn it into your own joke and meme and move on. Because, the truth, you know? And that actually is the lying, or at least what I would call, not as egregious, but lying adjacent behavior, is what really caused my first tete-a-tete with Stephen A., which was, I thought it was, that's not lying, to be fair, but a misrepresentation of the LeBron stuff. And a misrepresentation of what LeBron was mad about, and a misrepresentation of, things that have been said in the past. And so here's the sad thing for me, is I don't, like I said, I have always had a really positive, even though we've never worked together, relationship with Stephen A. He's always been very kind to me. He's said nice things about the show. He is very tight with Brew. And I do think there are a lot of things about his sportscasting that are unfairly maligned. And I have said as much. And I would imagine he probably is not going to listen to this whole thing. And I don't know if he listened to this whole thing or just a clip, if it would be better or worse. But regardless. But I am certainly not making my life easier here. But now that Stephen A. has decided to, at this moment, in this country, in our history, to swim in real political waters, and he wants to have a real political voice, whether or not he ever runs for office, which I would doubt, but I do think he will have real impacts. When we're talking about, the left needing a Joe Rogan and the impact of podcasts and media and all of it, and he has dove headfirst into these discussions. I think it's important that those people are held accountable. And I think that in a time where we cannot rely on the people who have actual power and our elected officials to give two shits about what is or isn't the truth, what is or isn't reality, what is or isn't easily disprovable, I think it is. And you have in concert with it what I would call a lot of very, very gullible media, of which I am not lumping Stephen A. in at all, who just the last thing they were told is what they believe and can be duped and tricked. When you have those things going on, I think it is wildly important for people, of which I think I am. I check all these boxes. I think Stephen A. checks all these boxes. Smart, more often than not, on the right side of important things, knows what truth actually is, and has the ability to really move people with their words, that those people move us back in a direction where we have, at the very least, a collective dedication to the truth mattering. And right now, we're losing that. One game of solitaire at a time, I guess. Talk to you guys Thursday. What's right?